Welcome back, everyone, to our podcast, Mindset Mastery. We are now on episode 3. Super excited. Today, we are interviewing Coach Paulo. Woo!
So, Coach Paulo.
Thank you.
We are here today with Coach Brian, myself, Coach Nicole. And yeah, we're very excited to be introducing Coach Paulo today and just getting to know a little bit more about him and his background. Who are you? Where are you from? And what has led you to life coaching?
I'm Paulo Mendes, originally from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. I grew up in a very simple home. My parents were pastors in a small community, a Baptist pastor. My father was a Baptist pastor. My family was involved in church. They were also teachers, high school teachers. I'm what they call in South Africa Lat Lamiki. My brothers and sisters are much older than me. So most of my childhood was spent either playing in the backyard by myself or reading books in the study room. And I had an interesting birth story, which is for another time. I'll share when it's relevant. But I was a kind of a sick child growing up. So I didn't relate a lot to other kids or didn't play a lot with other kids. It was only when I was around 15, 16 years old that I started actually exploring the world. So I was a very shy child, very naive, and very curious to learn about the world and to learn about people. I was always happy to make new friends, but I had trouble keeping relationships because I couldn't relate well to other people. And then studying a lot about psychology, reading my parents' books, I became very passionate about understanding people, understanding how the mind works, understanding how people think and how the emotions play a role in people's behavior and decision making. So I went to study psychology. I love psychology. I believe in psychology. I love the part of studying the human being mind and consciousness and everything. But I struggled to reconcile that with the scriptures in terms of healing. So I wanted something that would lead people to healing, not just to having coping mechanisms, not just a crutch to help you deal with the things, but rather how to heal from the problems and live a fulfilling life going forward. So that was how many years later I came across life coaching and decided to go into it.
Amazing. What I like picked up the strong sense just from your background and the reason you are finding yourself on this path of life coaching is that your approach, or you go to the root of the problem, and you're not just dealing with what do they call it, the symptoms of the issue. You're diving deep and you're going to the root and helping people heal from that point of pain or brokenness, and then we can move forward. So I think that approach is pretty powerful.
So considering your background and everything, what got you and motivated you to be a life coach? Because you initially said you studied psychology and you did not just want to understand and to find coping mechanism, but actually wanted to be able to help people to solve. What really got you to that point of wanting to be a life coach? What's the inspiration behind it?
What led me to coming to life coaching was that when I was studying psychology, I started working with tourism. I started developing a career, growing through the different ranks in the hotel industry where I was part of. They offered to pay for me to do marketing psychology, change my major from clinical psychology to marketing psychology. And I started studying that. And then I got involved in the hotel industry with sales and training. And after almost 20 years of working in sales training and in different industries, in Brazil with the hotel industry, in South Africa with the IT industry, with sales, I came to the conclusion where people needed help moving forward. And what I knew from psychology was helping them understand their past and trying to make sense of their lives in the present. But how do we move from reconciling the past and understanding the present with moving forward? Because we always talk about goals and setting goals and how to have good habits and your routine, your morning routine, your daily habits define who you are and so on. But how do you break away from what is holding you stuck in the past, from the trauma, from the pain, from the hurt, to just being disciplined and then moving forward? A lot of people get stuck in that. And by a lot of people, I mean me. Right? I was stuck on, I had all this knowledge, but how do I transform that into power to move into the future?
Yeah.
And that's where I found in life coaching. Life coaching was about you look into the past just enough to understand what processes were part of getting you stuck. Then assign new meanings, understand the process, reframe that situation, assign a new purpose into that story. So basically, you are stuck to the story you're telling yourself. And if you are telling yourself that you are a victim, you're going to be stuck in a victim story. If you start seeing yourself as a hero, as somebody that has the power to change, as somebody that has the power to make your own choices and design your own future, that's what I found in life coaching. And that's what made me fall in love with life coaching. And then I just started studying more and more.
I want to dive a little bit deeper on that last bit that you just said. So you can use this as in your capacity as a life coach or just a man. What challenges have you faced?
As a life coach, the first challenge that I faced was, am I enough? Do I know enough? Do I have enough experience? Who is going to believe I can actually help them? It wasn't one challenge, was what I learned. I was facing imposter syndrome. I was facing the challenge of, who am I to actually be doing this? Are people actually going to take me seriously? And the only way to overcome this was by doing it. Back when I started 7 years ago, TikTok wasn't a thing, but we had YouTube. So I would watch hundreds and hundreds of YouTube videos to gain both context and courage. And also learn that everybody went through the same process. So the biggest take from me was realizing everybody that started went through that same process of doubting themselves, but then the only way to overcome that is do it. So here's a phrase that stuck with me was, action beats fear. The only way to beat fear is to get action, is to get on doing it. And not being afraid that you're going to look ridiculous. So I started just doing videos of myself talking on the topics or on questions that I had for myself. Reminds me when we did the interview with you, exactly. and you started doing the podcast or doing the reels of the things that spoke to you. So that's why I thought it was brilliant, because I went through a similar process, except that instead of putting out, I was just recording it for myself to watch. So you were braver than me starting it. Another thing that I did was then I started offering people that I knew the opportunity to have conversations for free, so I could gain experience and I could gain feedback. So initially were very simple things, were very simple situations where I didn't feel that I was putting myself into much risk of not knowing how to handle, and the person also would be safeguarded not to share too much and not to expose too much. And little by little, I started gaining more experience, I started gaining more confidence, and the thing grew from there.
It's amazing how getting into action dissipates your fear and crashes that imposter syndrome that you have. start when you're not ready.
Yeah, just start.
Yeah.
You don't start when you say you're going to start. You
Yeah.
start when you start.
Reminds me of that thing saying you don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to become great.
Yes.
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 Well, Coach Paulo, what really an amazing story. I think one of the biggest things that we sometimes are afraid of is, are we going to be successful in this thing called life coaching? And with the amount of experience and years you've put into it, I'm sure there are some success stories that you look back and you just smile. Can you maybe share one of those, as a client's life changed, and, I'm sure you would have an example of such, that gives you that feeling, I'm doing well, and inspire you to keep being a life coach.
I think right when I was starting, around 2018, I had one couple. I remember sitting with the. It was actually a funny story. This couple that I knew from doing some business together mentioned to me that their son was under a lot of stress as a director in a company, and then they asked me to go and meet with the son. So I met with the son, and we were talking about the possibility of coaching him. And I remember feeling so nervous because I had to portray this capability that I can help you. And he's a decision maker in his business.
Yeah.
So he was a level C executive. Nothing I had ever done prepared me for that before, except the confidence that I knew that I could deal with leaders, because in other jobs and businesses that I had been involved, I was always good with speaking to the directors, to the vice presidents. I always had an easy connection with leadership. So I didn't fear leaders.
Yeah.
But I had no experience in coaching one after that point.
Okay.
So I spoke with him like, yes, we can do this and everything. And I'm putting my best foot forward and, sounding really convicted and brave. And at the end of the conversation, he said, you know what? You have so much capacity. I think I actually gonna do the opposite. Instead of you coaching me, I need you to help my parents with their business and get them out of the funk they're in. And I'm gonna pay you to coach them. So he paid for a 3-month package for his parents to do a coaching with me, which was more than I was asking him, because it was then now 2 people, a couple. And it was my first experience coaching a couple, which now is basically the main focus of my business, relationship coaching and family coaching. But I started then working with this couple, and the first challenge was they were friends. So I had to learn to separate the two and deal with them very professionally, and yet keep the polite, the kind approach. I don't believe in being cold. I mean, just, you got to reach people in the heart.
Yes.
And I did one session with them. In one of the sessions, we really did what is called negative emotion therapy. It's not something that I do with everyone. It's something very delicate. If you don't do it properly, you can get into some weird scenarios. But again, we prayed, and I spoke to them about how I trust in being guided by the Holy Spirit in helping them, reconnecting with their original design in God and the purpose that God has for their lives. So I made very clear where I'm coming from and the approach that I'm going to use. And then we did that session, and was very good. The lady obviously cried a lot. The husband cried for understanding she was having a breakthrough. And I was like, wow, okay, this was much deeper than I thought it would be. But anyway, it worked out well. And we finished the 3-month sessions. And for a year and a half, I didn't hear from them. After the 3-month package, they didn't want to continue. And I was like, okay. And I thought all right. We had good sessions, but they didn't want to continue. And I thought, okay, I just need to. So I got a new client, started working with new people. And a year later, or a year and a half later, that was 2021. So 3 years later, 2021, they came to visit me, and they said, sorry, we've been away. We've been actually moved out of Cape Town. We were rebuilding our business. That work that you did with us 3 years ago completely changed our lives. That one particular session, do you remember that she mentioned what we went through? And she said, it took me about 3 months to recover from that because it touched so much in my life. But everything that you taught us in those 3 months, we have been working through it, and we rebuilt our marriage, we rebuilt our business, and we are now celebrating 40 years of being married. And we want you to please officiate our renewal vows.
Amazing.
And I was like, what? So 3 years later, I reaped the fruits of that one session, right? So it just started. It just exploded my confidence in a nice way. First, in understanding that sometimes you don't reap the fruit immediately, but the client will have that for their lives forever.
Yes.
So also made me realize that I gotta trust that God is doing the work in the person's life, and I am an instrument.
Nice. Yeah.
And the third part was to realize that I gotta really invest and learning more and more and more, so I can be of more and more use to the people. Because even when I don't see what is being done, God is working in the background, and I get the benefit of. Reminds me of King David said, "I know the Lord will be good to me because He glorifies His name." So it just made me fall in love with coaching all over again, and kick-started my business in a completely different direction. From that moment on, I started getting offers to do podcasts, to speak to men. I started getting offers to do recordings, to speak to couples. And I started getting offers to even connecting with other friends like Nicole and Lizzo and Karen, that we started doing, again, a video podcast. And things just started building from there and there. And my confidence grew. I started realizing so many other things I needed to then learn in terms of administration for the business, how to grow the business. And back to your question in terms of, am I going to be successful? One thing in success is, are people actually listening to what I'm saying? Does anybody actually want to have what I can offer? And the second one, can I make a sustainable business in the sense of, can this be something that will generate an income that can sustain me professionally, right? In terms of, can I actually build a life from that? I have a family, right? So that one couple success story was the one thing that gave me the confidence to see, okay, God is in this.
Yes.
I am meant to be doing this. Let me invest on myself. And then there was a journey. There was a lot of times where I would sit here and look, I need to do YouTube videos, I need to do recordings, I need to do reels. And I'm telling you, that's another answer for another question. But I struggled a lot with procrastinating. And then little by little started building and growing.
I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you. Like I said last week, my realization within my marriage with your help was the work we did 3 years ago. And I had that moment.
And that story wasn't you.
I know. The story wasn't me. But I'm sitting here thinking,
you were another success story that made me so happy.
Listening to you, where I came to you a few years ago, and just last week came the deep realization of what actually was done. And I honestly thought I saw fruits within the 3 years, which I did, but last week was it was like an orchard. Last week, yeah. So thank you. I appreciate you so much for the work that you do.
I'm on it.
Yeah. So like, if there's any advice, you have any advice for aspiring coaches, as people that, you know, would love to have a career in life coaching? Any advice or tips for us?
The advice that I would give to anyone is trust the process. Educate yourself, do the courses, do the learning, not because you need a piece of paper.
Yeah.
And in some instances, in some situations, like if you want to work with within government positions, within things like that, a piece of paper is going to validate.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I did the courses, I have the certification, but when I talk to clients, I don't say my certificate comes from that school in America. I don't even mention where is it from in America, because the work that I do is not based on who they are.
Yes.
The work that I do is based on the gift that God put in me. And if I were to define myself, when I tell people I am an intuitive coach, and I use many different approaches because people are different.
Yes.
So I equip myself every day. I study every day. I continue studying. Not because I need a piece of paper to validate me to somebody, but rather to equip the tool that God's going to use with the right people. And that's my thinking. My approach is I'm going to help the person, the couple, or the individual reconnect with their original design and then rediscover the purpose in life. I believe every person is placed here for a reason, with a gift. And it's our honor as life coach to help people rediscover where they fit in while they understand their uniqueness, their true self.
So much for sharing. I am so excited about next week's episode. It will be episode 4. We will be chatting about why life coaching, why is it important, and most importantly, who needs it. So I'm super excited about that conversation. I cannot wait.
Who needs life coach? Everyone.
Yeah.
So we'll delve into that. We'll have a really good conversation. And I'm very grateful and I feel very blessed to have this experience with the two of you. So thank you.
Well, it's my honor. Thank you. Bye-bye.